Welcome to everyone at the YouTube studio here at the Munich Security Conference. We are joined today by Minister Baiba Braže, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Latvia.
Hello.
I'm Alberto Rodriguez, one of the hosts of Visual Politic. Well, Minister, I will get straight to the point. This has been a kind of a crazy week. This year's Munich Security Conference is one of the most important ones, but unfortunately, not for the reasons we would hope. This week, we all learned that the US President Donald Trump has just agreed with Vladimir Putin to start negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. But he did so unilaterally, turning its back on his European allies and without Ukraine's involvement. It is even possible that we may soon see Putin being welcomed with honors in Washington, D.C. Minister, what is happening? Is NATO weaker today than it was just a few weeks ago?
Hello, and thanks for having me. And all the pertinent questions are asked. And indeed, Munich this year and the conference is not only very timely, but also quite crucial because this is where all the decision makers gather. So on the situation overall, I think in Europe, in the world, there are several elements that we have to look at. One is, of course, Ukraine's will. What Ukraine wants to do. Does it want to keep fighting? Does it want to enter peace? What type of peace? So Ukraine's decision, Ukraine's will be very, very, very decisive. And, you know, it's a big country. It's the biggest country and biggest army in Europe. So if they continue fighting, it's their decision. They can continue fighting. So I think that is one element where Putin has not achieved his objectives that he stated before the war. Remember in 21-22, Putin essentially said, we want NATO to go back to the borders of 97, which would mean not only Finland, Sweden out of NATO, but also the Baltic states and other countries that are members. He also said that they want to really sort of de facto control Ukraine, basically, you know, taking Ukraine off the map as an independent country. And they also said that they want to limit American role, basically, you know, US out of Europe. So when I look at the readout on the Kremlin's homepage, when I read that Kremlin has said, Putin has said that, we have to eliminate root causes of the conflict. To me, it says exactly the same thing, the plan of 21-22. And of course, neither for the US, for President Trump, or for the NATO allies, or for Ukraine, that is something that can be accepted. So there will be an inherent sort of difference of views, whatever negotiations we enter with. But on NATO, I would not say that is the same issue. It's a different issue, I think, for Americans and everybody. The signals have been very strong that, yes, NATO is a key alliance also for the US. It's the strongest military political alliance, defense alliance, and it's not in the interest of the US to weaken it. But in the same time, clearly, both President Trump, Mr. Hexed, the defense secretary, but also we as the Baltic states and others have said, yes, Europeans have to devote more resources to defense. It's a time of crisis in Europe, and we have to be serious about our defense. So I would analyze it slightly differently, not that what is weaker, what is stronger, but actually there are givens that we need to do. There is Ukrainian agency, and yes, we all want peace, but that peace has to be durable and it has to be just peace.
And in that line, there is something that concerns us at Visual Politic. And well, I happen to live in Estonia, and on February 2nd, 1920, the Treaty of Tartu was signed between the Estonian government and the Soviets. To give some context for our audience, that agreement enshrined Estonia's independence, yet it wasn't a lasting solution. 20 years later, Soviet troops invaded and occupied Estonia. How can we ensure that Ukraine does not meet the same fate?
Actually, it was the same for Latvia. Our treaty is also from 1920 with the Soviet Russia. We also beat Germans at the time, so it was a treaty also with Germany, peace treaty. So the Baltic states did very well, beating both Russia and Germany. But And it was the same, 11 August 2020, where Soviet Russia said that it gives up any ambition on the Baltic territories forever. And 20 years later, they crossed the border with tanks and occupied us. So indeed, that is something where we have to draw the lessons that we have to be strong ourselves as nation states. So that also applies to Ukraine, that whatever the outcome of the peace negotiations, Ukraine will have to be maintained strong. Strong militarily, strong politically, strong democratically, really with the support of its people, economically. It's a big economic power. Let's not forget that they continue exporting grain and other produce even during the war, and they are able to keep Odessa port open. We visited that with the Nordic Baltic Foreign Ministers last October. So I think those elements are very clear. We also have to be very self-confident as Europeans and Americans that Russia is a failing state. It's an authoritarian regime with economy like a house of cards, crumbling, sanctions having a strong effect, ruble has lost more than half of its value, interest rates about 20%. I mean, it's not a functioning economy. So if Russia ever wants to sort of change the way it's running its country and economy, those things will have to change. I mean, they will have to figure out how to not to have authoritarian regime, how not to attack other countries, and how to make a functioning economy. But that's not for us to decide. It's for the Russians. Our task is to really make sure we are safe and secure, strong, united, and democratic.
In that line, well, we believe at VisualPolitik that ensuring Ukraine's security means also ensuring Europe's security, especially for countries like Poland or the Baltic states. In 2008, Putin invaded Georgia. In 2014, and again in 2022, he invaded Ukraine. And in both cases, he seems to be getting away with it. So let me ask you a very direct question. Is Latvia in danger?
Is NATO in danger? I mean, we are NATO member states. So I don't believe Russia has intention to attack NATO. That would be quite a different type of war. And NATO is strong, so, you know, the sort of new type of war between the NATO alliance and Russia would be what Russia is facing.
In recent months, we have seen all kinds of hybrid warfare attacks. Well, in the Baltic, we saw undersea internet and power cables cut, damaged gas pipelines, interference in electoral processes. Is Russia behind these operations? Or, in other words, beyond a potential military operation, is Russia a threat?
Well, Russia has been recognized by NATO as threats in the strategic concepts, and that hasn't changed. There is an annual threat assessment, and it's there. On those attacks, on the cyber, yes, quite a number of times, allies and the alliance, and also actually the EU has called out Russian perpetrators of cyber attacks. Last, it was 3 concrete people from Russian military intelligence who were identified as being behind the attacks, and that attribution was made together by a number of allies, including Latvia and Estonia and others. So on a number of cases, quite clearly, also behind the sabotage attacks, various, you remember the killing of people in Germany and Berlin, in attacks or attempted attacks of burning and sabotage in Lithuania of IKEA shop, in trying to put parcels that might explode on the planes, in the DHL packages. But also in Latvia, we clearly established a link with Russian intelligence. The attack, which was done by throwing an explosive at the occupation museum, which keeps history of people who were deported and so on and so forth by the Soviets. And I think the key to counteract, whether it's undersea infrastructure, whether it's cyber, whether it's the operations on the ground, or information space, which is the most difficult in my view, It's awareness. So the services, the society has to be aware and prepared that this is a new normal, that this is happening. Testing and exercising. So as with that subsea cable that was just damaged on 26 January, it was within hours, the ships who were nearby were identified, they were approached, some by NATO ships, some by other navies. But the most important was that the users, the end users, didn't feel that something was wrong because the critical infrastructure operator had prepared and tested and done reserve scenarios. So even though that very important cable was damaged, the end users didn't feel it because there was alternative plan. So awareness, preparedness, and testing, and exercising is something that needs to be done.
Well, every time I listen to Latvian, Lithuanian, and Estonian officials, and also people in the street, I have the impression that you all understand better the Kremlin than anyone. So in this regard, my question is, how do you think Europe should deal with them? With Russia and the Kremlin.
With Butcher in the Kremlin. Again, I think one is to clearly remember the objectives that Putin had before the war, when he started the war. It's no secret, he has been announcing it regularly, which is changing European security. The way we are organized, which is, that we have NATO alliance, which is a guarantor of our security, which allows our businesses to thrive, which allow, us feel secure and safe to study, to let children in the world. That all is guaranteed by the security provided by the alliance. So Putin wants to take it away from us. Then European Union, again, a very important element of our security and also welfare, because through that European cooperation, through removing tariffs, through removing barriers internally, having this equal playing field within the EU for our companies or students to travel and teach and study, we have created welfare societies that is an admiration for the whole of the world. So to maintain that, we need to be serious about defense. It just doesn't happen by itself that we continue to be, everything is good, wealthy, we don't think what Russia is doing, and let's just continue to function. No, we have to constantly upgrade our defenses. And for that, again, remembering Putin's objective, that he wanted to achieve not only occupation of Ukraine and elimination of Ukraine as an independent country and people, but also change European way of life. And what he didn't get now through the war, we shouldn't let him getting through the peace talks. And I think that is why the current time is so important.
And speaking of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it seems very clear that the requirements of defense equipment has changed since this invasion, and I would like you to ask for this cooperation that Latvia has with the UK to produce drones. Could you tell us about it?
Oh yes, it's a big drone coalition. We just had a new member, Norway, joining, so it has now more than 20 countries, I believe, or 30 countries in it. I would have to update myself. But the whole point of it is to put our knowledge resources, money together, to provide Ukraine with what it needs, but also to upgrade our own industries, because so much of the defense technology today is dual use. So you can have drones for intelligence, the ones that can fly and see and hear and record and then transmit information back so that we know where the enemy is. But you can also have those looking after fires somewhere in the forest. So that technology can be used for various purposes. If we want, for example, if the objective on the military battlefield is to eliminate enemy's tanks, yes, it can be done by artillery, but it can also be done by armed drones, right? So, and in that respect, of course, Latvia and the Baltic states are very special because the high level of technology developments, innovations that we have, the engineering tradition, there is a very, very rich, thriving industry of all defense technology in Latvia. So it's logical that we lead that drone coalition to help Ukraine, but also to help ourselves to get to a new level.
Just a very short question. Regarding the outcomes of this security conference, is there any specific message that you would like to share with the audience that is watching us now?
It's important to meet. It's important to meet and talk to each other because leaders, people have different opinions. So by coming together and actually making sure that we talk through things, I think we can overcome problems that we think exist. That is one very important point, and that's why Munich is so intense, these 3 days here. But second, I think it also is a big stage, a global stage for projecting the values that we stand for. The values as Europeans' values, as Americans' values, as private sector, government sector, so everybody is here. So projection of that unity and values globally, I think, is very important.
Thank you, Minister, for joining us today. And thank you also to all of you that are watching us on the other side of the screen. See you on the next interview here at the Munich Security Conference.
Thank you.